You feeling lucky, punk? You know, I remember as a kid, there was always a Western on television. It was either Clint Eastwood or it was John Wayne or someone like that. And, I got to like them as a kid, They were a little slow and a little boring, but, I loved the idea of America back in that time. But something that really blew my mind years later on that I found out was that a lot of these films were called spaghetti westerns. And when I found out why, it was actually kind of a shocker to me. I was like, holy smokes, because the films, they depict a time in American history that, just feels very American. It's very, just gritty, Western America. But the reality is that most of these films were actually made by Italian directors. And the reason for that is because in the 60s and the 70s, these Westerns had kind of fallen out of favor in the States, and they weren't as popular here, but it was still super popular around the world. So a lot of Italian directors ended up making films, American Westerns, and they were coined spaghetti Westerns by many critics because they were made by Italians, right? Can't do that nowadays. And again, the movies, they really just existed because in America, we just weren't filming anymore. And also, it was actually cheaper to film them in Europe. But and that's the funny part, that most of these films, they look like the United States. They look like Texas or the Wild West, but they were actually filmed in places like Spain and Italy, you know what I'm saying? So it's just funny now when I watch these films and I go, hey, that's not Texas. You know what I'm saying? And the cool thing though about them is that the way that the Italians did it kind of really defined the traditional American Western, because they started to make them a little more grittier, a little darker than the American style of American Westerns, where it was always like a good guy who was motivated by justice, you know what I'm saying? And he was shooting all the bad guys. But in the way the Italians did it, it was usually like an anti-hero. He was looking for money or revenge or his survival or whatever. It wasn't kind of the black and white way that we did it here. Now, the most famous director of all these films was a guy named Sergio Leone, and he really helped to define the style of the spaghetti Western. With these kind of like long dramatic close-up, and they did all those kind of tense standoffs, and the storytelling was really good. And Leone's most famous film ends up actually being probably the most famous Western of them all, and that is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, starring Clint Eastwood, who up there with John Wayne as the #1 cowboy or Western actor of all time. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so that's a little history about the spaghetti Western and Westerns on film, And that's actually what brings me to today's cocktail, okay? This cocktail was inspired by the spaghetti Western films, and also a cocktail that I made on the channel previously called the spaghetti Western. Now, the spaghetti Western cocktail is delicious, and I really do enjoy it. But it's a tequila-based cocktail, and I said to myself, you know what? I want to make something that really represents the old west of America and also Italy, right? And so I came up with something called El Buono, El Brutto, El Cattivo, which basically means the good, the bad, and the ugly in Italian, okay? And so what I wanted to do was take 3 very kind of big, bold spirits, put them together, and also make sure that they capture the essence of the West and Italy, right? So let's look at what's in the sauce, right? So, we need to have some whiskey in here, and we're going to be using some rye whiskey here. I'm using some Rittenhouse. I mean, when you think about the West, you think about guys just taking shots of whiskey and then going out there and shooting each other. You know what I'm saying? And so, with the rye, you're going to get some spicy notes, and this is an overproof rye, which really helps to add more bite to the cocktail. So this is definitely the way I would go with the rye and the whiskey. And then I want a little bit of smokiness there, right? Because, there's nothing like a little bit of gun smoke when you talk about the West, right? And so I'm going to go with a Scotch here, and I'm using Isla Mist, which has a little bit of Isla Scotch in it, so it's a little bit more of a smokier style of blended Scotch. Now you can use a pure Isla Scotch to get really smoky, but I'm not huge on the smoky notes in cocktails. This is just the perfect amount. And then I want this something bitter, something that really showed that kind of grittiness that a lot of these guys had. And something Italian to pay homage to the Italian directors. So I'm gonna go with my favorite Amaro of them all, Cynar, right folks? And then after that, I'm going to just hit that bad boy up with a couple of dashes of bitters. Again, just kind of emphasizing the bitters there, and it's really gonna help wrap this cocktail together. And I gotta tell you, I made this not too long ago on one of my Drinking Buddies live shows that I do with my pals Dave over at Booze and Rocks and Rob at Rob's Home Bar, and it was absolutely delicious. Okay, so I can't wait to try it again with you guys. But before I do that, I'm gonna need you guys to go ahead and hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can help Vino feed the hungry algorithm. And make sure you stick around because we're about to boogie down. All right, so look, before any of you guys get at me in the comment section about the, you're feeling Lucky Punk not actually being from a Western because it's from the whole Dirty Harry movie, here's what I gotta say. Dirty Harry stars Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood is the king of Westerns. The line sounds super cool in my video intro, and therefore it's staying. That's it, punk. All right, end the story. So anyway, let's get back to the cocktail here, okay, folks? This is my El Buono, El Brutto, El Cattivo. Let's give it a sippy sip. Salute. Oh, that's fantastic. Absolutely delicious. Just like I remembered it, guys. You're getting some real good bitterness here right off the bat from the Cynar, and obviously the Angostura adds a little bit of bitterness there too. So you're getting that bitterness, and then you take that bitterness and you add the spiciness from the rye. So together your tongue is really just tingling, and then coating all of that is the smokiness from the Scotch. Now I can only imagine if you use like a full-on Isla how smoky this thing could get, but just as it is, you got these bold ingredients working together to make an unbelievable little cocktail, guys. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Anyway, look, if you like today's video, please press like, please subscribe, and please share with your family and friends. Remember, sharing is caring, and when life gives you lemons, you make yourself a cocktail. Cheers.